I think that the most difficult thing for them to learn is actually, that's a good question. Well, if I were to get technical about it, I would say that pronunciation is the hardest thing to learn. I see people, I have a lot of contact with internationals just because my husband is an international, my parents were. Um, they have a tremendous facility with English in general. They can use English in everyday communication. They use English in sort of very specialized areas, science or linguistics. And they're comfortable with that and they're very proficient, but they still maintain this accent. So I would say that sounding like an American on a phonological point level of having the American accent, I think that's a lot harder than mastering the grammar or even mastering some of the idiomatic phrases that sort of make you stand out as it would normally make you sound like a native speaker, but the accent sort of is very tenacious. I think I pay more attention to them, and I think it's because growing up I was very aware of, I wanted to sound like an American when I spoke English, but I wanted to sound like a Taiwanese when I spoke Taiwanese. And I had a Taiwanese accent speaking English in the beginning, and I was very, very, very determined to standardize that accent and make it sound like Middle America. So I do remember watching the news with my father and following along underneath my voice and on a soft voice what the news anchor was saying to try to mold my accent closer to his. And that was at a very young age I was doing that, so that by the time I was 12 or 13 I had pretty much wiped out whatever Taiwanese accent I had. And by the time I was 15 I no longer had a main accent, so I was as standard as I could make my accent. On the Taiwanese side I was always upset when we would go to Taiwan and people would look at me and after 3 minutes of talking to me say, "Oh, you must be an American, you came here from America." And that really upset me, since Taiwanese was my native language, my first language. I didn't speak English until I was old enough to play with other children. But living in this country, with the exposure that I had some vestigial American accent that people could always identify me. I've worked on that too and really listened to understand why my pronunciation is different from my mother's or different from my aunt's. And as a result, I think actually my accent has improved as I've gotten older, but now they identify me with a much older cohort. I sound like I'm about 50 or 60, because those are my models that I speak like. But yeah, all my life I've really tried to, I've been very aware of my accent and tried to modify it, not always successfully, with varying success depending on which language we're talking about, but that has always been something that's been very much at the front of my mind, so I'm very aware of that.